Today, we have a truly unique story to share as we sit down with Charles Mayfield, the innovative founder behind Farrow, a skincare brand unlike any other. Charles' journey is a blend of culinary passion, a deep respect for regenerative farming, and a surprising hero ingredient, lard. Yes, you heard that right, lard. From best-selling paleo cookbooks to discovering the remarkable healing properties of animal fat after a personal experience with sunburn, Charles' path is anything but conventional. He'll share the challenges of introducing a lard-based product into the beauty world, the power of educating consumers, and the surprising lessons he's learned along the way, even from pigs themselves. Get ready to be inspired by Charles' commitment to transparency, ethical sourcing, and the profound fulfillment that comes from building a business rooted in sustainability and family. As always, if you found value from this content, please like and subscribe. All right, Charles Mayfield, welcome to Beyond Fulfillment.
Dave, it's a pleasure to be here. Great to be chopping it up with you today.
Absolutely. We appreciate you taking the time. So let's get right into it, Charles. So how did the leap from the culinary world of paleo comfort food lead you down the path of creating a skincare brand that's rooted in regenerative farming?
God, that's a great question. Uh, so, we still handcraft all of our products in the kitchen, and so it helps scratch the itch of I love working with my hands, but really, Dave, the big thing. So the impetus behind the cookbooks was my ex-wife and I ate this way for a number of months. It changed our lives for the better, our health and all that. And so it was like, man, and we were one of the few people that sort of knew how to cook. We both loved cooking. And so the cookbooks were a way for us to share what worked for us, and we'd seen work for many others from a culinary standpoint. And with regards to the skincare, I had this sort of crazy moment. I talk about it on the website, but I had this sunburn, and we use animal fat for our skincare products. We were talking before we hit record. We lead with lard. It's a pig fat. Spoiler alert there. But yeah, half desperation, half curiosity. I tried this stuff on arguably the most common acute skincare condition uh, in the world, certainly in the summer months, and it worked miraculously. I mean, it just you're fair skinned enough, Dave. You get a bad sunburn, it stinks, and then you peel. And when I used this animal fat on my skin and I never peeled, that was like a light bulb moment. So yeah, tinkered around for a number of months, played with recipes, gave samples to, gosh, I probably 1,000 people. And yeah, we sort of settled in on a formulation that seemed to work really well and people liked, and it worked for me. And so if it worked for me, I know it can work for other people, and that's really what drove us to launch the company.
Attention e-commerce sellers. Is fulfillment a headache for you? Whether you're fulfilling in-house and you know you need to outsource, or you're with another 3PL and you know you deserve better service, Easy DC 3PL can help. We offer personal service, fast response time, and we're flexible to meet your unique needs. Get in touch today and find out how we can help you. So that was the impetus of Farrow. And as you mentioned, right, kind of very different, right, radical idea. So when you're promoting a product and manufacturing a product that's, lard-based skincare, like what type of challenges does that present?
Oh goodness. Well, a number of challenges. The skincare is a very large industry. Some call it highly saturated. I think there are sections of it that are, but yeah, large. Funny enough, there's a number of animal fats. Tallow is very hot right now. Tallow's beef fat for your listeners. Tallow's pretty hot right now, and then you've got sort of the Maha movement over here. That's RFK, and a number of people are touting tallow for cooking. returning back to that. But I would say the biggest challenge we have is just culturally, lard's been out of our vernacular for a very long time, even though it was the staple fat that we cooked with. We made, a lot of different skincare products with various things up into the early 20th century. And so uh, I would say the challenge is sort of that unfamiliarity, and I'm hesitant to say disgust, but a lot of people associate lard with, and it doesn't sound very fancy. Even tallow has that sort of je ne sais quoi to it. But yeah, so marketing's been a little bit of a challenge. We haven't spent a lot of ad dollars yet. We're sort of developing that, but long form podcasting, in person conferences, face to face, where we can really sort of walk the customer to our product and sort of the whys have proven to be very effective for us. And sort of the clickbait ad stuff is a little challenging because if people scratch just a little bit, we lead with lard. We lead with animal fat. We're not trying to hide anything at all. And so without without being able to sort of walk the customer to that from an educational standpoint to why our product might be just what they're looking for, there's a lot of like pent up, oh, that sounds gross, or it's comedogenic, it's going to clog my pores. There's a lot of misinformation as well in the skincare industry. So fighting all that's been our biggest challenge. In terms of sort of what we're bumping up against now is one of the reasons I was excited to come on and talk to you. So we still handcraft everything. A good month for us is 2, 3, 400 units, shipping out the door. And so we're sort of at this next tipping point of, do we try to find a co-packer? How do we scale? And so, co-packers, our product is not retail shelf friendly. There's no chemicals or anything in it, so it's temperature sensitive, lots of various things. And so, warehousing it for Amazon or even a brick and mortar store, it's not conducive to our product. And so, trying to figure out how to make that next big leap into not only like throughput production capacity, but also fulfillment and time and building the team, to accomplish that.
Mhm. Okay. And so how did your experience in co-authoring these best-selling cookbooks, prepare you for the the task of product development in the skincare industry?
Huh. Well, I don't know that it prepared me. I mean, I love the kitchen. And so, you get plenty of reps with all the equipment. We right now manufacture all of our products with what I would call basic kitchen equipment. It's really just, it's like making a cake. You just get the ingredients right and make it up. We're still hand piping our products into the jars that we ship things in. So that was part of it. The paleo cookbooking also, it was paleo that brought me to regenerative farming. We didn't really touch on this much earlier. You brought it up, but I spent about 6.5 years intimately involved in raising, nurturing, ultimately butchering and consuming pigs. And they're a remarkable animal uh, by every count, both agriculturally and ecologically. And so, that was one of the things that really motivated me to sort of launch this company. Okay, if you raise a healthy, happy pig, okay, they taste great, they're unbelievable for the land, but oh my gosh, here's this waste product, so to speak, from the animal consumption industry, and look at how unbelievable it is at skincare. And so those three nodes really sort of ultimately undergird Farrow as a brand.
Yeah, and I love your slogan of the lard works in mysterious ways.
Oh, thank you.
Uh, when you break it all down like that and you see what it can do for people and the success stories you've had, And like you said too, it's something often overlooked, and you wouldn't think that there's something there, but then lo and behold, that there's a big benefit to using the lard. So that's
I could
fantastic.
not agree more. Yeah.
So, you mentioned the consumer education standpoint as a critical component of the marketing. So, like what type of strategies? I mean, you mentioned the podcast and just getting in front of people, but growing a brand like this, yeah, where you really have to get out in front of the marketing and really give more education. What other type of strategies do you have to educate the consumer?
Yeah, well, we've got a CRM, so somebody buys something from us, they're going to get, of course, they've already purchased, right? But we're gonna bring them along on a journey, get them up to speed. Some people do respond to an Instagram ad. Some people do. It's certainly word of mouth. So we get quite a few referrals from very happy customers. And so skincare is one of those, well, I think any industry really, but certainly skincare is one of those industries where, if Susie tells Jenny, I've been using this stuff and it's amazing, you can bet your bottom dollar Jenny's going to buy it. And so automating a sort of a client funnel, an education funnel for our email subscribers has been very valuable. We get fairly good response on that. And that's really been the extent of what we do to this point. We are jumping more into uh, affiliate based marketing. So finding, influencers or people in the health and wellness or even skincare space for that matter, but people that understand our product, appreciate it, and then we can align with them. And cut them in on the deal, put a discount code together with them, track the metrics on a quarterly basis to see how everyone's performing. And so that's our next sort of avenue to grow business, grow our customers.
Okay. And how has your definition of entrepreneurial success evolved, from the cookbook days to what you're currently doing with Farrow?
Oh, evolved. Well, we ended up writing three cookbooks, and so we stopped at some point. But that always felt like a one and done, even on the second and the third. Funny enough, like the first cookbook was the most fun because you're just new and everything's awesome, and then it sort of became a grind at some point. With Farrow, there's a couple of pieces to it. One is it is manufacturing. It's creating a real product. One equals one equals one. You send off a book to the publisher and they can run you off a whole bunch of stuff, whole bunch of copies. You just got to pay for them. So I've really enjoyed this venture to the degree that I just feel like every aspect of the business I'm touching, and obviously we've got to find a path out of that. There's only one of me, and we've got a team helping out behind the scenes. But when you start talking about scaling and ultimately giving more people an opportunity to try these products, they have helped a tremendous number of people. And so objectively you want to facilitate the spread of your product and hopefully the relief or success with more consumers that we've seen. And so I really like the idea of building a family business. I've got two young kids. They've somewhat been featured here and there on the website, 10 and 12 years old. And I grew up in a family business when I was a young kid. That family business did sell when I was in high school, and so just sort of try to create that legacy with my kids, and that opportunity with my kids is one of my big motivators for sure.
Okay. And so you mentioned like the fulfillment it brings you to be able to really touch every aspect of the business and learn it all and be involved in it all. But like you said, that's not really sustainable when you're thinking about scaling for the long term. So how do you know when it's the right time to kind of step away from some of these aspects where you're involved in every aspect and how do you know when it's time to kind of give some of those up and start looking to outsource and begin to scale.
Well, some of those things you know immediately. I mentioned I do have a team sort of behind the curtain, so most anything technologically related, I'm already outsourcing to some degree. When it comes to the manufacturing side of the house, uh, I do like mentoring, and so I've got a couple people coming on board, and we're dripping them into learning sort of our systems. I would say keeping a really good eye on your metrics and what's working, what's not. Our trend line's been pretty steady in terms of growth, and so when we see it, when we see a blip, for better or for worse, that's always a moment of to sort of step back and analyze. Okay, what just happened? Why did it happen? And how do we either do that again or avoid that in the future? And so there's a piece of that that's analytically driven. Candidly, my kids, I mentioned 10 and 12, so they're starting to get a little bit more active with baseball and softball, and it's the classic sort of teeter totter of focus on the business, focus on the cherished children time, as much as you can, and so I would say in the last 12 months, I've started intentionally finding ways to bring other people on board or be more efficient with whatever it takes to get the creams out the door. And so those are the two big things that drive me are the data and the dad time personally.
Okay. All right. And so, you know, today there's a much bigger focus on, transparency and ethical sourcing, particularly in the beauty and the skincare market. So how do you think that helps you when you're growing a business like Farrow?
Yeah, well, you can piggyback on an ethos that's already out in the market. Um, I won't name names. There's a very successful skincare brand that, gosh, I want to say they had about a $450,000 capitalization, and 4 or 5 years later sold for, oh gosh, I think 700 or $800 million. A really, really, really big move there. Uh, they rose to prominence by taking out 6 ingredients in skincare. Okay, and for your listeners that don't know, there's thousands of arguably non-effective or ineffective or toxic ingredients in skincare, certainly here in the US. And so there's already a consumer mindset around cleanliness, around ecologically friendly, around I, the skincare industry is fairly dominated by the vegan ethos, plant-based vegan ethos. I don't subscribe to that personally. So there's sort of a niche there for us in terms of we think our products are more highly effective. We're back to transparency. Like I'm perfectly happy having a conversation with you or with a consumer or on a stage addressing sort of the sacred cows behind some of these marketing campaigns that I think are not necessarily very truthful. And so, being hyper transparent, back to the leading with lard, like our logo is a pig for crying out loud. So we're not really trying to hide anything. And having said all that, we're also willing to have all those discussions around, what is in skincare, why is it there, is it really helping you? Um, one of the one of the education pieces that I enjoy, frankly, the most is talking to people about forget our products for a second. talking about like the foundational things you can and should be doing to give your skin permission to look its best. And, none of those involve buying my products. It's just making little tweaks in your everyday life. And so, again, for me, that sings of transparency. The skincare industry is going to tell you how to fix the problem with their product. I'm trying to tell you how to address your problems, you know, from the inside out with food and sleep and all these other lifestyle things that frankly are directly tied to optimal skin. And so I think that's a really nice silver bullet to have in your gun, is just being willing to talk outside of your brand, outside of your products, to the very basic foundational things that people, consumers should be focused on.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you said, that message can get lost in a sea of marketing with particularly in a industry like skincare, for
Hmm.
sure. Okay, and Charles, what's been the most rewarding aspect of building a business that's so deeply connected to the land and sustainable practices?
It's the stories we get from our customers. I've got early in the business, probably 6 months into the business, I got a call from a guy whose daughter, she's about my daughter's age. So this is a couple years ago, maybe 7, 8, 9 years old, 6, 7, 8, and she has eczema. And it's on her hands, it's on her face, and very very common, sort of autoimmune skincare condition. And I had he's a buddy of mine, and so I had sent him some product. Just, hey man, try this on your daughter. And again, I'm not trying to say our product, there's words you can't use, heals or whatever. But, to get a call from him, maybe a week or two later saying, hey man, this stuff's gone away. The girls at school have stopped teasing my daughter. She feels better. Like, and so it's stories like that. I've got precancerous sores. I had a 75-year-old guy out of, I think, Wisconsin, and bought the product, tried it, went into his dermatologist, and they're like, oh, all these precancerous sores on your head are gone. Of course, he just sends me this email and pictures. And so that's I would say that's the most rewarding part so far. I would couple that with, I have brought my kids along on this journey to whatever degree I can, since the beginning. It was born out of farming. They were helping me on the farming front, early on. And yeah, I'm sitting in our fulfillment center here at the house, and if the kids are here, my 12-year-old son, he'll come in here and he'll have 10 or 15 orders, like batched out, pulled, ready to ship out. They're just into it. And I don't overexpose them. I give them just enough. Kids need to go be kids, but they really do enjoy, keeping their hands in the business and talking about it and all the fun. I got them business cards. So it would be hard to actually, testimonials and results aside, it's probably hard to put that below anything else, just because I've really enjoyed having them along with me.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. All right. And so you mentioned your journey with farming, and how that's where all started. And of course, like you mentioned earlier, your logo is a pig. So what can you learn about business from a pig?
Hmm. Well, couple things. Pigs like company. They're very gregarious animals. So if you're thinking about starting a business, what do they say? You can go faster alone, but further together. And so I would say that's the quickest and earliest lesson I got, not only from the pigs, but just starting this business. And in today's world, I've mentioned I have a team. None of them live within 20, 50, 100 miles of me. I've got a virtual CFO and a virtual this. And so um, that would be one big thing, is pigs definitely like to have company. They go further together than they do apart. They don't let anything go to waste. And so I think in terms of the early business, I didn't let any downfall, any mistake, any victory, good or bad news. I think it's really important to pull a lesson out of everything, especially early on. Obviously, we're still learning every single day in terms of, how to make this business better. But don't let anything go to waste, and don't be scared to get really dirty. Pigs actually thrive on getting in the mud, and people think it's a problem. It's actually the pig doing what the pig loves to do. And so I think embracing, what do they say, like embrace the suck. Any business is going to have low points, and so learning how to mentally just face those and understand that it's going to be great. It's not going to suck. This is the lesson, and I'm going to come out of this stronger, I think is another great uh, pig lesson. So those are three good ones.
Okay, love that. All right. And Charles, if people want to reach out to you, learn more about your product, how it could potentially help them with their skin, or anything else with your current business, what's the best way that people can reach out to you?
Yeah, our website is Farrow, FARROW.life, and you can do the contact us form there. Our it's a social media is such a struggle for me. On Twitter or X now, we're at Farrow Skin, so you can DM me there. I answer all the DMs on X, and then we're Instagram. It's Farrow.skincare is our IG handle. But the website's the best place to, again, if you send a contact us form, I'll get it. We haven't delegated that out just quite yet, but yeah, that's where folks can find us.
Okay, excellent. We'll link all that in the show notes for everyone. All right. Well, Charles, thank you so much for taking the time to be here today and sharing all this valuable wisdom from your journey with our listeners. We greatly appreciate it.
Thanks, Dave. It's good to be here.
All right. And that's all the time we have for now. We will see you next time.